Welcome everyone. We're going to get started. We're expecting a few more people, but we'll get started and we can get caught up as we go. And I just want you guys to get the information over here now. So my name is Stephanie Ruckel. I work in Student Financial Services here at Augsburg. And I have two of my colleagues, Amanda and Casey. And they're both here to just kind of help if you have kind of questions with anything and I can't quite get to them. So I'm hoping to kind of work things is we're going to spend about a half hour or so going through just some basic loan information, some of the terminology, some of the payment plans. And then we'll spend, I guess, the bulk of the time having you actually log in to see what loans you have, to look at what repayment options you specifically have. So instead of me just talking big picture about loan options, you can actually see what works for you directly. So Casey and Amanda can help get logged in if we need to. And if we can't get logged into the federal site, that's okay. There's other places that we can go. You can actually go with your loan servicer, and I'll show you some of it here tonight. So again, if you can't get logged in tonight, you can kind of follow along at least a little bit. But I think it's so helpful to actually see your own numbers and plug in things and get that information. So this is also going to be super casual, so feel free to just interact if you have any questions at all. Okay. I'll also hand out. Let me get your handout. Just some slides. They're the exact same thing that's up here, but sometimes it's helpful to take notes, and I like to kind of follow along on paper as I go and take notes and that kind of stuff. So, so again, we're going to just go over some basic loan information. We're going to talk about some of the different repayment options that are out there. We'll talk about what to do if you have difficulties repaying your loan. We'll talk a little bit about consolidation of some of the loan forgiveness programs. And then the last page on the handout has some websites and some additional information for you here too. The other pitch that I'm going to give you is at the end of this presentation, I'm going to send you an email with a 2-question survey. And I'm just begging that you guys fill this out because I think this is super important. And I hope you guys do too. I think that's why you're here. And I want to keep doing this, so it's helpful if I get a little bit of feedback of other things that I should be covering or how it went, and just I can pass that along too. So, if we, all of your loans, if you think about them in sort of 2 buckets of loans, so you either have federal loans or you have your private loans. So we have some examples of what federal loans might be. The most popular ones that you're probably looking at and repaying are your Stafford loans. Now, depending on when you went to school, they could be called direct Stafford loans or belt Stafford loans. They're still Stafford loans, and they still can be subsidized and unsubsidized. But for the context of all of this, just think of them as federal student loans. Okay? There's also Perkins loans that we'll talk about as well, and those all are under the bucket of federal student loans. And then we have private loans. So private loans would be something that you borrowed while you were at Augsburg, that you actually went to like a bank or credit union and asked to borrow money. So some of the big popular ones are like the Wells Fargo, the Southern, or the Sally loans. Tonight, we're really just going to cover federal loan repayment options. Because with private loans, there's really not a whole lot of options. Your lender is going to say, hey, here's how much you borrowed, and based on that, here's what your monthly payments are going to be. And sometimes they'll work with you if they have troubles making your payments, but there's no kind of concrete programs to set things up with. It's all just based on that lender and your relationship with them. So it is important to know that if you're having troubles paying on your loans and you have private loans, it's worth looking or working with your lender. But there isn't any of these like big bucket programs that we can already talk about. If you're not sure what is about private loans or not, really the only place to look would be by pulling your credit report. So you can go to the annualcreditreport.com. You can go there and get your credit report for free and see if you have any private loans. If you only attended Augsburg, you can also work with our office and we can look at your account and see if you had any private loans when you were here. If you went to a couple of different schools, we could tell you what you had at Augsburg, but you have to connect with each of those schools to about private lenders. Then as far as federal loans go, there is a database that tells you what you owe in federal loans. So again, if you went to multiple schools, there's one spot that you can get the total overall of all of your federal student loans, and that's a national student loan database system. You have to get logged in using like your FAFSA PIN number, and it would tell you who you owe and how much you owe and what you borrowed each year and that kind of stuff. So this is a good kind of starting spot to know who you owe and how much you owe on the federal side of things. Questions on that? Great. Okay. Then all of this can feel a little foreign. So a little bit of terminology for you is the difference between like a lender and a servicer. So normally when you borrow a loan, you think of your lender, right? You borrow a car loan and you've got your car loan lender, and that's who you make your payments to, and it should be all nice and simple. But what makes it a little bit more difficult with student loans is that you still have your lender, and that's the bank or the institution who provided the funds to you. So who did you borrow money from? The loan servicer, though, is the company that's actually sort of meant to be the third-party person to take your payments from you. So if you think about, in the case of federal student loans, your lender, who you borrowed the money from, it's federal government, right? So you borrowed a federal student loan, but when it comes time to make your payments, they don't want you to write your check out to the White House every single month, right? If you're not paying Congress or anything like that. So they actually have a loan servicer, and their job is to help facilitate making payments on your behalf. You log in to see your loan servicer. Now, in the case of private loans, your lender and your servicer are typically the same. You borrowed money from Wells Fargo. When it comes time to repay your loan, you go your check out to Wells Fargo. For federal loans, your lender is the federal government. Your servicer could be a couple of different servicers. So there's 4 really big servicers. So my guess is almost everybody probably has their servicers, one of these 4. I think there's 11 different federal loan servicers, but these are the main 4 that everybody would have. Are you shaking your head? Do you not have one of these?
No, I do.
You do?
I just like that there's a lot of different programs.
Yeah, and it really ends up being kind of random who you get assigned as far as your loan servicer goes. The nice thing that I think happened now 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, is that any federal loans you have will be serviced by the same servicer. So if you have 6 different federal loans, you're making payments for the same company. If you're working with Great Lakes and say, I am just not having good luck with them, they seem to be pushing me around and not getting good customer service, you can actually ask to switch servicers. I've never had a student that needs to, but it actually just was a new bill that happened that students could actually switch their loan servicer. The repayment options, everything you have, the interest rate, all of that is the exact same regardless on what servicer you have. Their website might look a little bit different. So for most students, you're not going to have issues with your servicer, but if you do, know that you can ask to switch, and we'll kind of talk through how you do that if you want it to, or if you're having troubles. And then kind of the goofy one is we said Perkins loan are federal loans, which is correct. The lender is still, it's the federal government. It's kind of the Perkins loan is a special circumstance loan that the federal government puts in money and actually the school puts in money. So Augsburg put money in along with the federal government, but when it comes time to repay your loans, you're actually working through Augsburg to repay a Perkins loan. When we log in, we'll see if anybody has Perkins loans, and we can kind of talk about at least a little bit of how to make payments on those loans. So that's the one caveat, is all of your federal loans might be with the same servicer, unless you have a Perkins loan, because then you have your servicer plus Augsburg. The only way to get those to be the exact same and just make one payment on those student loans would be to consolidate your loans, and we'll talk about that a little bit here too. How many people are actually in repayment on your student loans? Some of them. Okay. About more than half. Okay. So when it comes time to repay your loans, at this point, depending on your balances and everything, there's actually 9 different repayment options you have. So when you're meeting with financial aid and planning on the loans you're going to borrow, people from our office would say borrow your Stafford loans first. Borrow them even if that interest rate is higher than private loans, because when you get out of school, where you guys are right now, you have 9 different repayment options. Remember when I was saying private loans? You have kind of one, make your payment, right? So 9 different repayment options. If you do nothing with your loans and don't opt into signing up a different payment plan, they're going to put you in the standard repayment plan that just takes what you owe, divides it out over 10 years, and you make your payments for those 10 years. So the payment options, again, think of them as 2 different buckets. So one is basic repayment options, and we'll go through what these mean, but basically these are just different time frames you have to repay your loans. Or the income-driven payment plans, these 5 are all going to be based off of your income. So again, when you're meeting with financial aid, we're saying take out your Stafford loans, your federal loans first. It's because your payments could be a percentage of your income versus just saying, hey, here's what you owe divided by 10 years. Does that make sense? So if we are looking at just the basic repayment options, and I put all of this here so you can kind of read some of the basics of setting up these payment plans, but don't get bogged down into the details of this, because it can kind of look like a lot on here. But the standard repayment plan just gives you 10 years to repay your loans. The graduated payment plan still gives you 10 years to repay your loans, but you start at a lower balance or a lower monthly payment. And so every 2 years, that payment kind of steps up. So why would this be a good option for a student? Yeah.
Maybe as you have more experience in your field and can get higher paying jobs.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's designed for. Is they say you get out in the workforce, maybe you're not making very much, and if you're in a career that you can expect stable salary increases every 2 years, it maybe doesn't feel so hard to make more on your loans, higher payments on your loans. But again, you're still repaying over 10 years. The extended repayment plan, similar to the standard, where it just takes what you owe and you have 25 years to repay it. This seems like an awful plan, but we'll talk about why that might not feel so bad for students if you're signing up to do 25 years. And you can only do this plan if you have more than $30,000 in your loan debt. And then the extended payment or extended graduate payment plan is a combination of these 2. So it gives you 25 years, and again, every 2 years it kind of steps up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With the extended repayment, just out of curiosity, if you get to $30,000 in that, then do they bring you to like regular standard repayment, or is it?
No. Yeah, good question. So for all you visual learners, this is, I think, what helps me understand this. Is standard repayment plan, you're making the same payments in 10 years, everything's paid off. The graduated repayment plan, every 2 years, your payments jump up. So in this scenario, you'll have $35,000, your interest rate is 6.8%. You might start with the payments of, I don't know what that is, $220, and every 2 years it bounces up, and at the end, your payments are close to $700 a month. But again, if you're in a field that you know that your income is going to support that in the next 10 years, it might be a good option. And then you can see here the extended repayment plan, straight for 25 years, and the extended graduated slowly raises for 25 years, but again, starts with payments of a little less than $200. So it's sort of a big jump from a standard repayment plan of, let's just say, about $400 a month, starting at less than $200 a month. Does that make sense? So we'll talk about how you can log in and see what your loans are, and they'll actually tell you if you're eligible for any of these. So they'll say, oh, you know what, you have $20,000 worth of debt, so we can't stretch it out for 25 years. And they'll tell you what your payment's going to be. And if you end up saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing a graduated payment plan, they'll tell you what your payments would be, so you can kind of forecast and say, oh, you know, it sounds great to make payments at $220 right now, but there's no way in 10 years that I'm going to be able to do $700 worth of payments, and we can look at different options. So you'll be able to actually see this for you. This is one scenario. But then what you hear a lot about are some of these income-driven payment plans. Again, don't get bogged down in the details, but all of them, and I only have 4 out of, and if you remember, there was 5 on here. This pay-as-you-earn has always been sort of the newest one that we had. We'll talk kind of in depth about the pay-as-you-earn, but as of a month ago, there's one new payment plan, and it's called the Repay plan, and it's now for the revised pay-as-you-earn plan. And the terms end up being really similar to the pay-as-you-earn plan, but the who's eligible to apply for it is a little bit more broad than what this payment plan was. So again, we'll be able to log in and see if you're eligible, but that plan is just a month old. So I haven't worked with a student who's been on this Repay plan, so I've read kind of what it's supposed to do, but I haven't actually seen it yet. So I don't want to go too in depth about that, and you can read what it is yourself and see if you're eligible to. So all of these, you'll notice, have a little bit of different payment lengths. So 25 years, 20, 25 years. And then they're all going to be a percentage of your earnings. This income sensitive repayment plan is, you'll notice it's 10 years. So the idea is that you're going to start making low payments, but it's going to increase really fast to still have your loans repaid within those 10 years. This pay-as-you-earn plan, as I said, it was before the Repay plan, was the newest plan. And really, I think what's happening is they came out with a plan that was way better than these two to eventually get rid of these 2 payment plans and hope everybody goes into this pay-as-you-earn plan. For students who have direct loans, which means all of your loans came after 2007, this is going to be, for the most part, the best plan for students. It has the shortest period of time out of these ones, the 20 years. And then where we get to the percentage of it is basically your payments would be 10% of your discretionary income. And how they determine discretionary income is your adjusted gross income, so your AGI, minus 150% of the poverty line. Again, if you're not a math person, don't worry about that. I've got a couple of scenarios, but again, you're going to be able to log in and say, hey, what happens if I earn $20,000? What would my payment be on all of these plans? What if I earn $60,000? What does my payment look like? What if I earn $200,000? What does my payment look like on all of these plans? So you don't have to know all the details behind it. Just know that there's a little bit of a difference between these plans. But again, that pay-as-you-earn for most students is what I'm seeing makes sense to sign up for. Okay, so for this scenario, we're assuming federal loans of $50,000, family size of 1, and the adjusted gross income of $35,000. So the scenario assumes that you're going to get a 5% increase in your income every single year. So you'll notice that this pay-as-you-earn plan, your monthly payments would start off being $152 a month. Now the increase, because they're assuming you're making, your income is increasing along the way. You'll notice that with the pay-as-you-earn, you're paying on your loans for 20 years. The total paid is $70,000. More than what the original payment was, but it's because the interest accrued. But you'll notice that you still, after the end of 20 years, haven't repaid all of your loans. What happens at the end of 20 years, your loans are forgiven. So if you're in an industry where you're not making a ton of money, you might not have to repay all of your student loans. Now in this scenario, you're repaying $70,000 of your student loans, which is still a big chunk. So if we think of this pay-as-you-earn, so same scenario, if we assume you're earning $35,000, we take 150% of the poverty line, which changes every year. 10% of that you divide by 12, your monthly payments are $145. Well, what if you're earning $17,000? Monthly payments are 0. If you're making $100,000, monthly payments are going to be $685. So in this scenario, it might not make sense to do the pay-as-you-earn plan. But if you're in this case, and again, this is a family size of 1, so as your family increases, the threshold of what you can have as your adjusted gross income before your payments increase will increase as well. Again, it does all this math for you, but what this helps with is the students who are making $17,000 or $18,000 or $19,000 after graduation could log in and say, I want to opt into this pay-as-you-earn plan, and you are making monthly payments of $0. So not a bad deal if you're in between jobs or not making as much as you thought you were going to be. It might just be a starting spot to say, hey, it's going to take me a couple of years to make full payments on my student loans. I'm going to sign up for this plan until my earnings increase. That makes sense? Yeah.
So this one is,
You opt into another one?
Yes. Yep. Good question.
this one is regardless of how much you actually owe, is that right?
Correct. Yes. Yep. Yeah. If you want to sign up for any of the income-driven plans, every year you have to verify your income. And it's much easier now to do that with your loan servicer. You can, how many people were in school when you were able to use the data retrieval tool with your FAFSA? Okay, maybe. You basically go into your loan servicer and you can click a button and say, take the information I filed with the IRS, send it to them, and then they have it and we'll just tell you what your payments are going to be. Now, I still don't like this plan, right? Because I'm hoping that that everyone isn't making $17,000 for the next 20 years. If that is you, then you might not ever have to make a payment on your loans and your loans will be forgiven. How this can really work is if you're in a field, and we'll get into some of the repayment options or forgiveness options, where if you're in one of these plans, maybe for a shorter period of time, so you're not doing this for 20 years. So, failing to pay. So a little bit of terminology. So delinquency is just being behind on your payment. So even 15 days late on your payment, so it's due on the 1st, you got to make it by the 15th. If you don't, you're considered delinquent on your loan. Delinquency isn't a huge deal. There can be some late fees with it that you don't want, but default is really kind of that bad status. And default is when you're over 120 days late on your student loans. So now that we learned about a little bit of the payment options, can you guess the number one reason why students default on their student loans? Right, I'm standing up here being like, if you're not making a lot of money, sign up this pays you earn $0, isn't that right? That's part of it, yeah. Where to go, that's part of it.
I would think maybe they don't know what they owe somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, the number one reason is because students don't even know that their loans are in repayment. So I do this for a living, right? Like I'm working with students on their loans, but this happened to me. Well, okay, it happened to my husband. So what happened is he was in grad school. He graduated, we got married, he was in an apartment, we moved. And all of a sudden I was helping another student with their loan repayment. They had questions about repayment. And I'm thinking, my husband graduated at the same time you did. Why haven't we got any information about his loans? And I asked him about it. He said, no, I haven't gotten anything about it. I'm like, oh, okay. And then finally I was like, we need to actually look into this. And what had happened was when he went to school, he was using the school email address. Wasn't checking that anymore. So his loan servicer had been emailing him at his school email address. He's not getting it. And then they were sending him notices to his apartment that he lived in when he went to school. Well, he wasn't living there. He had moved twice. They weren't forwarding mail anymore. So out of all really good intentions to repay his student loans, he just didn't know he had to at that point. And again, I work in this industry and I still miss this for him. So the number one reason is because students just don't even know that their loans are in repayment. So you guys are better off than so many other students because you at least realize, hey, loans are coming due. Okay, so good job. There isn't a reason to be in default on your student loans because there's so many different options to work with your servicer on coming up with really affordable payment plans. Affordable payment plans might be $0 a month. They just have to log in and knowing that that's an option now. None of you guys are ever going to be in default on your student loan, okay? Sound good? Part of logging in today is it will pop up to say, here's the contact information we have for you. I can't tell you the number of students that I'm meeting with now are using their Augsburg email address. So if that's you, when you go in, make sure you're changing the email address that they have on record for you. And if you're not maybe in a house housing situation that you think you're going to be in for a couple of years, you might want to put a more permanent address on here, right? If my husband was thinking, he would have maybe put his parents' address on there, because at least if they were sending, this loan servicer sending him bills in the mail, at least his parents would open it or let him know he had mail at the house. Yeah.
I think there was a sign-in sheet, but I don't think I think it stopped somewhere.
We have it here, and we can pass it around, and yeah, no, that's perfect.
I just remembered.
And this is for alumni relations, had just asked that we had updated contact information. Yeah.
So you said that you have to reapply every year for the pay-as-you-loan or earn. So when do you have to do that, the first of the year, or?
It depends on, so it's from when you sign up, for when you sign up for the payment plan, it's a year later.
Okay.
So if you sign up today, it'll be another year from now that you have to go in.
Okay.
Yep. So kind of, so it's 12 months from when you enroll in the plan. Good question. And if you don't, right, so again, if you forget, they're just going to switch you back to that standard repayment plan. That's always going to be the default. So if you're making lower payments and all of a sudden your payments jump up, it might be because you forgot to send in some information for them. And again, you can go back. Yeah.
If I buy a loan, like, you were kind of going to be able to report the loans you received in this academic school year as earned income?
No, those loans are never considered for your earned income. So this is actually a really good plan for students who maybe aren't making a ton of money. If you just graduated this last spring, you maybe been only in the working world for, let's just say, 6 months. Even if you're at a job that you're making $40,000 a year, your earnings might only reflect $20,000 because it's 6 months of your earnings. You might be able to be on a really low repayment plan for another year or so. Now again, interest is still going to accrue on it, so it's not always the best option to just be in the lowest monthly payment plan. But if you need that to sort of survive at this point and kind of get life settled, it's an option. Again, the whole goal is to stay out of default on your student loan. That's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is getting paid by spending the least amount of money as possible, right? So then there's a couple of other repayment help. So again, a deferment, you might hear that, and that's just postponing your payments for a certain period of time. So when you took out your Stafford loans, your loans were in deferment because you were enrolled at least half time in school. When you were in school, you weren't making payments on your loans. So if anybody graduated and then all of a sudden said, you know what, I'm going to go to grad school, when you enroll at least half time, your loans will go into deferment again. Some of these other ones, if you're experiencing unemployment or you're experiencing economic hardship, you could call your loan servicer to say, hey, here's what's going on. Could I get into a deferment program? Yeah.
So if I'm going to grad school this coming summer, do I need to let them know? Or will they, like, after I apply? Or how does that work?
So they don't care about when you apply or your intentions. They actually only care when you're actually sitting in school.
Okay.
So what happens, and how it worked while you were at Augsburg, is every semester, after the term gets started, Augsburg automatically reports what students are attending school. And so a grad school would do the exact same thing. And so then you start school in, let's just say, June. After you're in the classes, that school will report your level of enrollment. As long as you're at least half time, it should automatically go into deferment. I say should. I say should. So pay attention, because sometimes your loan servicer maybe isn't checking that you're enrolled, or something got missed from your school or something like that. So pay attention. They should automatically go into deferment. If not, your grad school's registrar's office can basically fill out a sheet of paper that says you are enrolled at least half time, and you can send it to your servicer and do the paperwork that way. It's designed to kind of be smooth, but again, you want to pay attention, make sure that it works. A forbearance could just be where you're going to have your monthly payments reduced, maybe not on a payment plan. Again, depending on your circumstances, some of these might work. The other possibility is if you're not earning, this economic hardship piece, I might tell a student, instead of asking for deferment, sign up for the pay-as-you-earn plan and make 0 monthly payments, because it goes towards, you get a check mark towards your 20 years. Again, I hope it doesn't happen forever, but then you kind of preserve these as possible options. When these kind of come into effect is if you're making money and all of a sudden experience maybe 3 months of unemployment, and you're thinking, all my income shows that I should be able to make these payments, but I just can't. That's where you could work with them to say, pay as you earn doesn't make sense. Even the payments they're asking for are too hard because of X, Y, Z, then you could qualify for some of these plans. And then forgiveness is a cancellation of a loan. How we really talk about forgiveness is either the teacher loan forgiveness or the public service loan forgiveness. The other ways that your loans can be forgiven is if you die or become permanently or totally disabled. Now, it's super morbid to think about this, but if you have a private loan that somebody co-signed on you and something happens to you. So if I have a private loan, my mom co-signed and I die. My mom is responsible for repaying my student loan. So a lot of financial planners will tell my mom to take out a life insurance policy on me to cover my loans. So if something happens to me, at least my mom is getting money to pay for that. There's an article in the New York Times a couple of years ago about a student who did that, and her mom had co-signed on all of her loans throughout her undergrad and graduate. It ended up being like over $100,000 worth of student loans, private student loans that this parent now was responsible for after the student had died. Again, you hope that doesn't happen, but it's something that a benefit is if something happens to you, you don't have to worry about passing that along. So you don't have to worry about those life insurance policies to cover your debt. Okay. And then I mentioned that we would talk a little bit about the Perkins loan. But again, Augsburg is your loan servicer, and we actually use a company called UAS. So maybe you've gotten emails or letters from UAS. You automatically get a 9-month grace period, which is different than your Stafford loans, which can be confusing. Your Stafford loans are 6. So you might be in repayment on your Stafford loans, but not yet on your Perkins loan. It's something to kind of pay attention to. Within the Perkins loan, there's a couple of different repayment options, but they're not sort of the robust ones that we just covered here. So students who have a lot of Perkins loans, sometimes we talk about consolidating because it is considered a separate loan. So you'd be making your payments, maybe set up a great payment plan for your Stafford loans. You'd still have to make payments on your Perkins loan, and they do have a $40 a month minimum payment. Perkins loans tend to be smaller loan amounts, so you might have in total owe $4,000 or $8,000 in your Perkins loan, where your Stafford loans could be much higher, but it is still a separate loan that you work out a separate payment for. When you log in, we'll see if anybody has a Perkins loan. If you have questions on it, I have the cards of our counselor who works with students who have Perkins loans, and she can help you figure out what your monthly payment might be, and if it makes sense to possibly consolidate those loans. Again, typically if we're thinking about setting up like a pay-as-you-earn plan, consolidate all your loans so that when you're making those low monthly payments, you're getting kind of a check for all of your student loans. Does that make sense? Perkins is kind of a weird one. Okay, so then we get to consolidation. How many people sort of assume you just need to consolidate your loans? That's how I always sort of assumed. It just used to be what you would do. Because every year when you borrow your loans, as a freshman, you borrow your loans, as a sophomore, you borrow your loans. Every single loan you borrow would be considered a different loan. So when you would get out of school, sometimes you would have 8 different loans. And before sort of the new things happen about different loan servicers, you might have to be making monthly payments on 8 different loans, or setting up payment plans on all of those loans. Right, that's a nightmare. So what consolidating is saying, I'm going to take out one big loan, repay all of my 8 other little loans, so then when it comes time to setting up payments or making payments, I'm just paying one person. Loan consolidation only works for your federal loans. It used to be you could consolidate all of your loans. You could take out a giant Wells Fargo loan, repay all of your student loans. Banks just aren't doing consolidation loans anymore. They're actually heard about one credit union that is thinking about doing it. I don't know, do you guys know if they've started? The one thing to keep in mind is if you consolidate just your federal loans, you get a new federal loan, so you qualify for all those repayment options. If you go to, say, a credit union and find somebody that can consolidate your loan, you take out your one loan, you could repay your federal loans with that loan potentially, but now you have one loan that's no longer federal. Doesn't qualify for any of these federal benefits that we're talking about here. So if you're thinking about consolidating, you might want to consolidate all of your federal loans and then all of your private loans separately and still have 2 monthly payments. Again, it doesn't happen a ton for private loans. The other part that why I don't want students to consolidate necessarily is because, again, if you used to have 8 separate loans, and now if you have one loan servicer, you're still only making one loan payment. So even though you log in and you see that you have different loans out there, it doesn't matter. You're still making one payment. You're working with one person on setting up one payment plan. There's really no need to consolidate. You can only consolidate your loans once. So once you consolidate your loans, you've done it. So why you might not want to do it is if you're thinking about going to grad school and maybe borrowing more federal loans, if you've consolidated your undergrad loans, you can't take your grad loans and put them all into one loan. It's worth maybe waiting. The other thing, is if something happens and your loans do go into default, so they're more than the 120 days past due, they're considered a bad status, you could consolidate your loans, so borrow one new loan, pay off all of your loans that are past due, and now this one loan is current. So you start off being current on a student loan. So sometimes that's a way to help students who are falling behind on their loans or haven't been paying attention to their loans for a while, is they've got this chance to consolidate their loans, have one new loan in a good status, and kind of have a fresh, clean start. But again, only use that once. Does that make sense? The other piece, sometimes students will say is, well, I want to get a better interest rate. Doesn't help you at all with your interest rate. So even though you might say like, oh, I have a loan that's 8%, and now loans are 4%, they take the weighted average interest rate of your loan and round up. So consolidating is not going to save you anything in interest, at least right now. Senator Franken actually has a bill that he's working on that would allow students to consolidate with a lower interest rate. So if it were me, I would even try to wait to see if this bill goes through and potentially get my loans in a lower interest rate. There's no word on what would happen if I consolidate now, have a 6% interest rate, and all of a sudden I potentially could qualify for a new plan that is 3%. There's no saying if I would be able to consolidate again, because again, the law says I can consolidate once. That makes sense? It's kind of complicated, but kind of think before you consolidate. It used to be everybody would consolidate your loans, and that's usually not the case. I would say the majority of students don't consolidate their loans. Okay. So loan forgiveness. Is anybody a teacher? One in the back. Okay. So there are 2 different loan forgiveness options. One is this teacher loan forgiveness, and if you work in a qualifying school for a certain period of time, depending on what you're teaching, what you're doing, you can just have up to, or from 5 to 17.5 of your loans forgiven. Yeah.
So I'm a paraprofessional, and I was wondering if that would.
No.
Okay. But I was just wanting to make sure.
There's the website that you can actually log in and see all the criteria of what potentially could be forgiven. But the idea is if you're teaching for 5 consecutive years, you can have some of your loans forgiven. So kind of the minimum is $5,000. So again, if you're on maybe a pay-as-you-earn plan, making lower payments at the end of 5 years, you get $5,000 worth of your loans forgiven, just like that. If you're in one of the high needs fields, you could have up to $17,500. So depending on what you owe in your student loan debt, if you're making low payments on a pay-as-you-earn plan, after 5 years, you get $17,000 forgiven. It's a big chunk of loan forgiveness there. Again, depending on what your payments are and what you had originally borrowed, is a huge chunk. The more widely known plan is this public service loan forgiveness option. How many people have heard of that? So what this does is it says if you work in the public service industry for 10 years, and you've been making payments on your loans for those 10 years, any remaining portion of your loans after that 10 years are forgiven. So this has really big impact if you're a teacher or a paraprofessional that you're saying, I'm going to make maybe really low payments for 10 years. At the end of my 10 years, anything I still owe is forgiven. So I said, it kind of stinks to have loans for 20 years or 25 years. This is a way to have your loans repaid within 10 years, same as a standard repayment plan. You have to do some paperwork to prove your income for 10 years and prove that you're working for the agency. But it's probably worth it to have your loans forgiven. Yeah.
The educator forgiveness plan, do you need to be an educator at an accredited school?
That's a good question. I don't know. There's a website here that actually will tell you, depending on what school you're at, what your forgiveness is. Yeah.
The school, to answer your question, the school doesn't matter, it's the field that matters. And so you're like teaching like math, is that for math, science, and special ed, is that like super highly area? Yeah.
Thank you. Now, a lot of times when I talk to people about public service loan forgiveness, they're saying, yeah, but that's only for like teachers or social workers. I went to school for accounting. I'm never going to qualify. Not true. Public service, they don't really care what you're doing. They care about where you work. So working at Augsburg, public service loan forgiveness here. Working in a school, no matter what you're doing for the school, working for the state, no matter what you're doing for the state, public service loan forgiveness.
That doesn't include the county, the counties?
It can, yeah.
It can, okay.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're a public service? Could you ask them?
Yeah, there's a website that you can plug it in. It all depends on your organization's tax filing status. So if they file as a nonprofit agency, government could be considered public loan forgiveness. So if you're an accountant working for the state, not doing any social working type of job, still could be forgiven through this plan. Yeah.
Can you piece together things? So like if I worked somewhere at a nonprofit for 2 years, and then I worked at a for-profit for a year in between, and then
yeah, so 125 payments working at a nonprofit. So it might mean that you're actually on this plan for closer to 12 years or 13 years, but yes, you have 10 years. You also don't have to work at the same agency. So if you switch jobs, but go from one public service to the other public service, it's all good.
You don't have to sign up. You can't go back in time and say, oh, I'm going on for
Yes.
5 years, that doesn't count. You have to sign up and then the 10 years starts.
So the clock starts from when you sign up.
It's definitely applicable with the direct loan program, so you would be able to be enrolled in one of the payment plan options and then also be eligible for.
Yeah, so the direct loan is the type of federal student loan you have. So if all of your loans are post 2007, you likely all have direct loans. Again, you can log in and see. The other option is this might be a reason to consolidate, because if you consolidate today, all of your loans weren't direct, you consolidate into one new direct loan, you could potentially still qualify for this plan.
You can't combine them.
What, these two?
There's one of the public service one, if you're maybe picking up hours working at a nonprofit, you wouldn't be able to file.
They look at the number of hours you're working. So I think it's 32 hours a week you have to be working to be considered full-time at the nonprofit.
So in that case, you probably wouldn't qualify for other payment options.
Well, you could. No, so you could be on the pay-as-you-earn plan,
Okay.
making low monthly payments for 10 years. You have to be working and making those payments. But if during that time you're a public service, working for a public service entity, at the end of that 10 years, your loans would just be forgiven. Does that answer your question? Any questions on any of that? Yeah.
can you combine the teacher return and the loan forgiveness?
Yes.
So, I just recently graduated from master's program, but, I have a different, provider of services, excuse me, than where I have an undergraduate. And I was asking with this, service about the loan for this program.
Yep.
And they were telling me that I didn't qualify for it because I'm married. So, and then when I called this direct number, meaning like the student aid, they were saying that I had to do the file separately, so that way I can have a loan payment to make. Otherwise, they'll consider your significant other's income.
That is true. Yeah, so they're gonna always look at the adjusted gross income from your taxes. So if you're married, they're gonna look at two incomes. If your spouse has loans, they will also look at the total overall debt that you have sort of as a couple. But yes, so that's sort of a big question. I can't answer it. I have students asking it all the time. Does it make more sense for me to file separately or jointly? And ask a tax accountant before you actually file what's going to save you the most money. You don't get the joint tax filing benefits, but it might be worth it if you have a lot of student loan debt and you're going to qualify for a big forgiveness to kind of go through that route. Good question. Okay. So we have a couple of other resources. So we're gonna, in a moment, just kind of jump in and have you log in to see your student account information. If you want more information about consolidating, this is the website that you'd actually go to consolidate your loans. One thing to double check when you are consolidating your loans to make sure that they have the full list of all the lenders you have out there. So you don't want to consolidate your loans and then forget you had a Perkins loan or something like that. So pay attention. So look at the NSLDS to see who your list of lenders are. If you want to read more about the loan forgiveness options, the teacher or the public service loan forgiveness options, you can read all about it at studentaid.ed.gov. That's where you can find out if where you're working qualified to for public service. And we'll talk more about the teacher pieces as well. We're going to jump into the payment plans in a second. But also here on the bottom is this FSA ombudsman. So that's who you connect with if you're having trouble with your loan servicer. So if you go and sign up for the pay-as-you-earn plan and your servicer says, no, we've never heard of that plan, I don't know what you're talking about. You say, no, I said in the presentation where Stephanie told me all about it, I want to sign up for the plan, and you're not happy with them, you can connect with this ombudsman, and that's sort of the person that can actually help you kind of navigate things. If you ended up wanting to switch servicers, you'd work with them to kind of facilitate all of that. So they're kind of intermediaries if you're having issues with your loans. But what I want people to do now is we'll get you logged in, and we're actually going to go to studentloans.gov. How many people have or know their FSA ID number? So to give you a little bit of context, because some people maybe are like, what the heck is Stephanie talking about? It always used to be you did your FAFSA with your PIN number, and just this last year in May, they changed it to say no longer are you doing a PIN. Now we're creating this FSA ID, this new password that is supposed to be more secure. It's a little bit of a headache, but if you know your PIN number, we can easily create an FSA ID for you too. If we can't get into it, or you're already in loan repayment, you could just go to your loan servicer's website. Or if you go to studentaid.ed.gov, they just have a loan repayment calculator where you could manually plug in what loans you have, and they can do the calculation for you without actually logging in. This is just sort of the easiest way to see what loans are out there and then do all that kind of math. So, yeah. So my guess is you never when did you graduate? Any of those. So let's go to 3. Do you know your past? 4 digits. Yeah, so she knows it's a huge help if you know your PIN number. If you don't know your PIN number and don't have an FSA ID yet, we can get it set up. But it takes whatever question. So how do you sign up for that public board? Okay. Yeah. So once you get your student loans, .gov on the very bottom left-hand side of the screen, there's a link for repayment estimate.
Yeah. Because I've looked into it before, but I've never seen any information that I have to sign up for it. Like prior that, like when you submit for it, you have to have all that paperwork in place.
Okay, well, they're not wrong.
Great. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. For sure. For sure.
I feel like I have like so many different websites that I go to, but I always enter the same one and I always get locked out because like it said it would be free code because my email is already used, so I'm like, okay, I must have one then. So I sent an email, but I didn't have one. So
Yeah, okay. I can just get it on here. I don't need the press. I can know the press. So I better email. Well, I have it here. That's just your phone.
So hopefully you're able to get them.
yeah, because I tried to like sign up for a new one if I didn't have one already, and
Yeah.
That's
I said that my username and my email were already used.
Stop assuming. So, unfortunately. For that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's. Okay, well, clear timing, right?
This is what he got in the mail, so I was sitting down with his head. So it's after the standard.
That, so they're not consolidated, they're still separate loans, they're all with debt service. So what I was supposed to do for is to get this on in, is to go to the SSL website, and just kind of, see where you're following your loans are. This may be all, where you are, or what you borrowed. But that would be a way to just see a whole list and make sure there's no other servicer out there that's also does that make sense? Alternatively, too, at least for this one, you can go to their website, set up an account, and start, you know, the process sometimes like really is to a couple different options.
Probably this. It wouldn't let me log in, but okay, so I'm logged in now.
Yes.
Okay, so
Let's see, so, okay, so this is your profile. So now you should be able to log in with whatever, if you reset your password or. Good, okay. Awesome. So the two issues I'm about is the repayment estimator here. But there's a couple of things to do.
about a month ago, I applied.
Yep.
And I went to his learn.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
I'm still like, really that will like I that.
Okay.
So I opened up this savings to like put money into it. And I found that they just said that my so I just want to like double check that.
Yeah. No, so this should this should have all of your loans. You could also put an NSLES on our website, which will be your listing of all of your loans. If you consolidate the likely group you worked with, so you'll be able to see all the federal loans you have.
I usually would have
Okay. Yeah, so I would recommend going to this website just to make sure, and you'll be able to see it as all consolidated, or to see if there's anywhere else in the federal loans that perhaps didn't get consolidated. I would guess that they were, but that would be double check. And then I would also, you know, if you are questioning if you borrowed, I would tell you to pull a copy of your report just to go through that, and make sure that yeah, if it would use the same information to plug in the financial review. Yep. Let's just leave this one out. Okay. So, let's see. So what will happen is when this is updated, it will, yeah, you'll see all of these as a zero, right? Or it'll say consolidated or something, and then you'll have a new one that says consolidation. Did you consolidate?
Yeah, that's probably that's. And it's option one at the very level.
Yeah. Yeah. So, So, I'm not sure if it would have been included or not. I don't know if you'd have had to request it. Service.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a servicer, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's what she told me.
Yeah, so you know, so I would look at them too, like this is so this is a good indication, right? This is your total amount that you borrow in federal student loans. So you should see if you consolidated all your federal student loans. That should be about the amount. So if it's, you know, $5,000 less than that, you might okay, so that would tell me maybe so,
So how would I go about?
so I don't think you'd be able to add that to that's not the just because there is so different. So
So I would just have to make two.
yeah. So you'll see that we are the servicer right now. So let's see, here's your grace period. Oh, okay, so schedule. Again, summer. Yeah, that would be about right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's when we start getting information from us. So it would be important just to make sure that we have the right address and, you know, right. The other, I think it's should say here. Yes.
So if I consolidated all at once, but how do I have 3 different? So these are.
Well,
Sorry, my answer was.
So there's the same successful.
Like I didn't do that. And then I have this one that was distributed earlier.
So then I was like, so.
Was it?
It was, yes, it was my loan servicer at the time. His
Unless possible.
Oh, yeah.
It's bigger than one.
It was right now, then it was like the federal government website. And then it was the
is less than for 5 years, 5 consecutive years, like in a designated school.
It did, yes, because it was before
Schools also. So it goes to the website. It gives you all the exact criteria that you need to fulfill to be able to have either the $5,000 sent to you or forgiven. So, yeah, so knowing that you're going to be doing this teaching track, go on there now, have an idea of like what they need to do.
And I checked the dates to make sure, and it did, it's 2007, and I think we're on it in 2010.
So I'm gonna go here.
All right. Yeah, cool. Thank you. And you can get there from the student aid website too. So you don't have to do this address, but they have a website. I'm sure a lot more of this. It's super easy to navigate. It's very clear what you need to do. I have.
I don't know. That's $5. The whole purpose behind it. The purpose is behind the payment plans and getting consistent payments for the type of do. That just looks like a lot. But that's
I'm not an expert, I'll tell you that much,
products that we would yes, this is very much try to see and the way that they see
all of these people finding it, and they provide it necessarily. But if you wanted to, high interest rate, You have to pay off
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go.
It's a lot, it's so much to organize.
I never did that. I never did that. I never did that. I would never.
I was gonna say, I think I can pretty well, and then so I could register this time, so if you want to have really fun. You can't let them say, like, you can't want So I think I'm ready to go. Is there anything I actually have to do? Well, if you I already talked about a lot now.
Something they're putting big deposits Really? I thought you were full of it. Oh, I mean, you're loaded.
You should have lied.
Okay. No problem. Okay, you know me. Okay. Back to you later. Bye. So he's going to like a list of loans. Now, would this be considered the consolidation thing? Or would this one, when it's like this, would that be considered consolidation? So he doesn't have to consolidate it, or they already did, or? So that's
just like these loans are all.
Okay, but now, like, at the end of 20 years, would it be forgiven, whatever's left on all of these, or would he have to go through that process to do that?
So if you're signing up for, so what I saw today, I'm glad you said are all.
Well, these are all that he has done credit union. So.
I know way more than because yours was really that, and I was thinking maybe I do.
Yeah, so not directly the same, it would have been. So, but I don't like going on their side.
It's good. It's going to mail it to your house.
Yeah, so. I think that would be not your best.
You have to get it.
I think you're